Hello everyone and welcome back to tomorrow's weather today. Today we have a severe weather risk for the Northern Plains and Dixie Alley. So we have two areas of main risk, like I just said. We have an enhanced risk from the Canadian border in Minnesota all the way down to central Nebraska, um, and then a marginal risk going all the way into North and South Dakota. Um, the rest of Nebraska, most of Nebraska, down into a little bit of Kansas, and up through Minnesota. We also have a slight risk down in Dixie Alley, most of Mississippi, and a slight risk, and the western part of Alabama, part of Tennessee, Arkansas, and uh, Missouri. Now, this down here is driven by tornadoes, the slight risk, as Cristobal has moved onshore in Louisiana, and there's enough shear down here to cause some tornadoes in the outer bands. Here's Cristobal on radar, low pressure is over here, center of circulation, and you got to watch in these bands with the heavier rain um, for tornadoes, especially these coming up right now. Low level shear is looking great, and this is on Mark Nissenbaum's radar page. I will link this down in the description below so you guys can go check it out yourself. Great website to see a few radars, mostly in Florida, but he does change out the radars when there's events like landfalling tropical systems. So I would definitely watch out for tornadoes in western Alabama and eastern Mississippi for the most part, and all of Mississippi for a matter of fact. Needs to be careful today. These tornadoes are embedded in low top supercells, so the top of the supercell is not extremely high like you would see in normal supercells out in the plains where they would go up 50,000 feet. These might be only 20,000 feet at most. These tornadoes will be quick to spin up and quick to dissipate, and at most be EF2 most likely. Otherwise, we do have a 5% chance risk for northern Minnesota and Nebraska and South Dakota. 30% chance for wind for Nebraska and most of South Dakota, and a little bit of North Dakota and Minnesota. Then a 30% chance with significant severe for hail moving through Minnesota down to Nebraska. Looking over at the HRRR model, the 13Z run, pulling this ahead, you can see storms starting to fire. 21Z, which is take 5 hours off, that would be 16, which would be 4, I believe. That sounds about right. I think 4 p.m. I'm sorry, I'm just really bad with this. 21Z, yes, 4 p.m. 4 p.m. at this very time. Storms start to fire up in North Dakota. These could be, in Canada needs to watch out too, as these could be tornadic, and these can be tornadic. And then storms start to fire down in Nebraska and South Dakota as a line. This would be more of a hail and damaging wind threat than tornadoes, but cannot rule it out, especially in these more discrete ones. You can see this one that is out in front like this. This with nothing preventing this in front of it. This could be tornadic. We'll check out all the other parameters, the LCLs. We'll check out a few soundings, but yeah, it looks like to be mostly a line today. Going over to supercell composite really quickly. Yeah, there's some high values, up to 10, up to 20 maybe, and it dies out. Before we look at other parameters, let's go over to our dew points. We'll go over to 21Z once everything's forming. Nice some 60s to 70s to mid 70s, upper 60s, mid 60s to 70s. I think this is a dry line here maybe. If we go over to aviationweather.gov, No, it's just a cold front. Dry lines down in Texas and New Mexico. If we take this ahead to 21Z, it's 0Z. Yeah, there's the cold front. Warm front up in Canada, cold front extending downward. Um, and then that cold front will be the focus for our storm. So our cold front is in here somewhere. If I had to guess, I would guess somewhere in there, maybe back a little farther. Yeah, back there. You had the winds shifting. You have a cyclogenesis happening down here with a low trying to form. Let's go over to surface-based CAPE. Let's see how much energy in the atmosphere. And listen, there could be a lot of CAPE in the atmosphere, but storms might not form because there might not be lift or there's not enough moisture. There could be other limiting factors. Just because there's CAPE and there's energy in the atmosphere doesn't necessarily mean that storms will go. You might see clouds in the atmosphere, but you might not always see storms. Just a heads up. CAPE getting up into 2 to 3,000s today, maybe even some spots of 4,000. Yeah, looking pretty good on the CAPE. Looking at the capping, very little cap for the most part. You're mostly gonna have cap in the morning. So if we took it sounding here, you can see that cap right in there, just a little bit warmer. But that cap does break as daytime heating occurs, and you get into uh, the warmer parts of the day. Looking at storm relative helicity 0 to 1 kilometer, um, there's areas that are higher, but low level shear doesn't look to be fantastic for today. 0 to 3 really quickly. Um, 0 to 3 looks much better. Over 100, yeah. SIGTOR parameter. Some areas up into Minnesota and some down here. I think this is where a storm is, but let's just check the sounding really quickly. Yeah, it's polluted. It's contaminated. Um, so let's go back to reflectivity. I want to take a sounding out ahead of this cell right here. In northern Minnesota. LCLs are looking pretty good. They're pretty low, 800 to 1,000 depending on how you lift your parcel. Classic supercell, SIGTOR's up there in the EF2 to EF3 range if something did form. Now, you can't take soundings literally. This is a what if. This isn't saying, oh, you're definitely going to get a storm here. This is saying, okay, the parameters are in place for tornadoes. DCAPE's low at 836. Those downdraft winds. This isn't going to be outflow dominant. Got some nice turning in the low levels. Weak though. The winds are weak though. That's the only thing. Shear in the one to surface to one isn't great. Surface to three is looking better though. LCL to EL 61 isn't bad. Shear. So if we take this back, so our other 5% chance risk for tornadoes was in Nebraska and South Dakota. So let's just take one ahead of these cells. It's a little contaminated. It warms just above the surface. Shear is definitely better here in the surface to 1, but not the surface to 3. SIGTOR value is low. Maybe a weak tornado down here if this comes true. DCAPE is high, so you would get some downdraft, big downdrafts and outflow coming from these storms, which would inhibit tornadoes to develop. Let's take one up here near the. That doesn't look very good. That is contaminated. Let's move this back before storms fire. Let's take it up here in northern Nebraska. Steep lapse rates in the low level, but there's a wide spread between the temperature and dew point, which isn't great And you can see that our LCLs are high, up to 1800 to 2000. Decape is 1300, pretty high, and like I said, that surface lapse rates 2-3 kilometers is strong at 8.7 Celsius per kilometer. Shear isn't great, maybe a little bit of a cap up here. Um, Relative humidity is low, 34 and 14. Yeah, that's pretty low. Um, and we'll take a look at our upper level charts as well. But let's go right here, right in front of that storm. That looks better, 86 over 67. That's looking much better, but their LCLs are still a little high, and winds for some reason are out of the northwest. But that does give you a lot of turning with the winds. You can see our shear is pretty high, 100 from surface to 1 and 300 from surface to 3. Low level lapse rates are low. I mean, are high. Our decape's pretty high. Because you have that dry air in the mid levels, and no cap. And this without a cap, storms are going to be able to go up frequently. You're not going to get discrete supercells, and if you can get discrete supercells, that will produce more tornadoes. Looking at the 850 millibar winds, our low level jet. It's more there in Nebraska than northern Minnesota. Going up to 500 millibars. Yeah, 500 millibars looks better for northern Minnesota than Nebraska and South Dakota. I would definitely say our best tornado risk is up here. If I had to guess for myself, let's see, right in here. Yeah, our LCLs are looking pretty good. Surface to 3 SRH is pretty good. Decape's getting up there a little high. 951 isn't too bad though for tornado development. It's because of this dry layer between around 600 millibars. LCL's 900 to 1000, 1300. And our LFCs are about the same. So let's go over to the mesoscale analysis really quickly. You know I like to use this as I'm not extremely knowledgeable on this. I think you guys know that. I'm about to graduate high school. I'm a senior in high school. Um, I'm going to college for meteorology. I'm going to Penn State starting in the fall, hopefully. Hopefully I get to go. And I'm really excited to learn. And I think I have a pretty good basic understanding of everything. And I like to push my knowledge onto you guys just so you guys can have a better understanding and make forecasts for yourself if you like to do that. If not, keep coming back to me because I like having you guys watch my videos. So looking at the surface-based cape, it's already building in. You have some capping in the blue. 2,500 in a small spot, but at least 1,000 for most places. This is the morning cap. It is 9, it's almost 10 a.m. out there at the time of making this video. According to the RAP 6 hours out, you can see storms starting to fire in North Dakota and Minnesota with cape of over 3,500 to 4,000 according to the RAP. Looking at helicity, 350, but it does weaken throughout the day, and you can see that it moves off to the east into Canada as the storms start to develop in Minnesota and North Dakota. Looking at surface to 3, can't really go ahead, but right now 400, but you can imagine this goes the same. LCL heights, pretty decent right now. And you can't go ahead, but 750 to 250, yeah, it's pretty low. 500 millibar analysis, you can see our upper level, our mid-level winds right here, 50 knots-ish, pretty conducive. And looking at our surface observations for right now, you can see 65-degree dew points, 73, 60s for most of Minnesota. Actually, all of Minnesota looks like they have 60 to 70-degree dew points, and 60s in uh, Nebraska too. Look like we have some sort of a front right here as of right now. Um, just by the wind shifts, I'm thinking that there's one in here somewhere. You can see you have winds out of the south or southeast here, and then you have winds shifting with some lower dew points into the 30s. Then you have the 60 dew points right here. This is more of a dew point change than a temperature change, but you can see some 40s and 30s out here and 50s, while you have 60s, 70s, and 80s out here. So overall, I think today's going to be there's going to be multiple tornadoes today, especially in northern Minnesota. Oh, right. Let's go down here. Let's check out Mississippi. And let's go over to surface to 1 kilometer SRH. You can see there's a lot. There's at least 100 to 200, maybe even 300 in spots, which will be conducive for those low top supercells to get going. So I think our best tornado risk for today is down here in Mississippi and Alabama and parts of Arkansas and Tennessee, but I cannot rule out a tornado for the northern plains. And if we read this, they say scattered severe thunderstorms are likely this afternoon. The remnants of Cristobal may pose a few risk for a few tornadoes across Mississippi, Alabama, and the mid-south region. So I think this is our best risk for tornadoes today down here. And then we have more of a hail and damaging wind threat for the northern plains. Thank you all for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe and turn on those post notifications so you never miss a new video. And I want you to comment down below. Yeah, did you experience any severe weather yesterday? I know we had a lot of areas that had tornadoes, a large damaging wind threat. If we go back to the storm reports from yesterday, there was a lot of damaging winds as that line of storms moved through the Dakotas last night. Thank you all for watching. See you tomorrow.